Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm coming to you with another acoustic guitar review, and we're looking at a Washburn, kind of. So this is going to be really interesting. Before I get too far into this, I want to say this is not going to be a short shut up and play video. It is not a tone demonstration. Of course, I will play the guitar in the video. So if you're just looking to hear how it sounds, skip around, you can find it there. I also already have a video on this channel where I just demo the sound of the guitar when it's played in a variety of styles. So if that's all you're looking for, you don't need to watch this. This is going to be a full-length video review where I really talk about the guitar, my experience with it, why I bought it, the story behind it, pretty much everything to do with the guitar that I can possibly tell you. So if you're looking forward to something like that, then stick around. Alright, so the Washburn RSD135-D. Really cool guitar here. A really neat instrument. First of all, it's a made in the USA guitar. So this is an American-made Washburn, which is something you don't see very often. It's not unheard of these days, but it's not as common as it used to be. Certainly not as common as it was in like the 1930s. So, why RSD135? Okay, well, RSD stands for Revival Series Dreadnought, okay? Or so it might be Revival Solo Dreadnought. People always argue what the S stands for. I'm going to say Revival Series Dreadnought because it is part of the Revival Series, and they do call this their Solo Dreadnought. The 135 is to celebrate the 135th anniversary of the company, which, you know, the company celebrated back in 2018 when this guitar was made. And the D on the end stands for Deluxe. Okay, so yeah, this was to celebrate Washburn's 135th anniversary as an instrument maker. If you don't know, yes, the company is that old. It's even older now. They've been around for that long, and they actually used to be a bigger name in the American guitar market. Even though they didn't really make their own guitars, they did in the early days, and by the 30s they were contracting their work out to Tonk Bros and Regal, and even Gibson were making guitars for Washburn. So, you know, they were their own American company. They did make some of their own models in the early days, but they began contracting out to other brands fairly early on. But they made beautiful instruments, super high quality instruments, and this one is actually modeled very closely after the 5244 Solo Dreadnought. Now, the model numbering with Washburn's guitars is always confusing, and their vintage guitars even more so, because they had a 5244 Solo Deluxe and a 5244 Solo Dreadnought. And they were very similar guitars. Got a freaking gnat in here. They were very similar guitars, but they had different body shapes. Okay, so the Solo Deluxe would have had a body shape very similar to this. This guitar, the RSD200, is based on the 5246 Solo Deluxe Super Auditorium. This is on the 5244 Solo Dreadnought. And you can see these guitars are very similar in shape. Okay, the Solo Deluxe has a slightly wider lower bout and tighter waist with the same dimensions for the upper bout. You can see here, still a tight waist for a Dreadnought, but not quite as tight as on this guitar. This gets especially confusing because, like I mentioned, there was a 5244 Solo Deluxe and a 5244 Solo Dreadnought, so half the time you see them mislabeled on the internet. Likewise, there was a 5246 Solo Deluxe and a 5246 Solo Dreadnought. What's the difference between the 5244 and the 5246? The 5244 had a spruce top and mahogany back and sides, like this does, and the 5246 had a spruce top and rosewood back and sides, like this does. I have a full review of this guitar. If you're interested, you can go check that out. But yeah, despite being very similar in body shape, they are far from the same. And so I wanted to kind of touch on that, because if you look up the vintage instruments online, you'll see people mislabeling them. I'll link in the description. I'll put a link to a photo where I kind of show the guitar side by side, and you can see what this looks like next to the guitar that inspired it. So yeah, it's based on a 5244 Solo Dreadnought, and they're very similar instruments, but there are differences between this and the guitar that inspired it. For example, this has a solid Stika spruce top and solid African mahogany for the back and sides. Okay, so it's all solid wood, beautiful guitar. The original would have had a solid red spruce top and solid Cuban mahogany for the back and sides. For those who don't know, Cuban mahogany used to be the industry standard mahogany and the only real mahogany back in the day. And then whenever it became impossible to get because of the bans on Cuban exports and the endangering of the species, they switched over to Honduran mahogany, which eventually became the new real mahogany, or true mahogany, despite the fact that a couple decades earlier, it wasn't considered as such. And so that's why I always have to put quotation marks over true or real mahogany, because the definition changes. This uses African mahogany, which despite being, from a different genus, it is still considered part of the same mahogany family and very closely related, and shares 99% of the tonal qualities associated with Honduran mahogany. Okay, as far as Stika versus red spruce, I'm not really sure what a red spruce guitar sounds like. I haven't played one recently. I'm sure I played them before because I played a whole bunch of vintage Gibsons and Martins and things at my dad's old guitar store. But what I can tell you is this guitar sounds really, really nice. Okay, so yeah, they made these to celebrate the 135th anniversary, and they only made 135 of them. So this is a very, very limited instrument. Only 135 ever made, and when you got them with the hard case, which I'll show off in the video. A book, which sadly I didn't get when I bought this guitar. I'll have to go out and buy it. It's something you can buy anyways. So I will buy that book, and maybe I'll even review it. As well as a certificate of authenticity, which, funny enough, mine was left blank. And I'm currently in talks with Washburn about trying to get that sent back to them to fill it out. So that's a fun situation, not exactly easy to get a hold of. Anyhow, yeah, only 135 made, and each one had a unique serial number. And the way they did this was every serial number corresponded to a year the company had been in business between the time it was founded and the year of the anniversary itself. So the one that had the serial number 2018 would have been the last one produced. So that's how each one kind of corresponds. I have number 1995, which is hilarious because it's so close to being my birth year. I was born in 1994. So this is, infuriatingly close to being serial numbered after my birth year. So yeah, very, very limited instruments, and they were made in the USA. So, where in the USA were they made? So that's actually a bit of an interesting topic, because if you watch the videos Washburn did for this, they say it was made in their custom shop, which would have been in Illinois. And in my tone demo, I even said in the description that it was made in the custom shop in Illinois. But that's actually wrong. I don't know if that particular Washburn rep was intentionally lying, or if he was just misinformed. These guitars were not built in the Washburn custom shop, nor were they built by Washburn. Okay, these were built for Washburn by Larrivee. And that was speculated for a while, and I have had it absolutely confirmed, as I actually called Larrivee and spoke to a gentleman there. I don't recall his name. He said that he wasn't 100% sure, but he believes that they had made guitars for Washburn, but someone else would get back to me whenever they got back to town. And I ended up getting an email 2 days later from Gene Larrivee himself, and he told me, yes, they made a little over 100 guitars for Washburn, which was this, to celebrate their 135th anniversary. And I sent him pictures, and I asked, was this the model that you made? And he said, yes, it is. And it even went so far as he allowed me to register it with Larrivee. So this is officially a registered Larrivee. These are Larrivee-built guitars. This is not uncommon for Washburn. As I mentioned, back in the the 30s, they were having companies build their guitars, but even in more recent history, they've done it. Back in 2012, 2013, there was a Warren Hayes signature guitar that was built by Atkin. Before that, I think it was the late 90s or early 2000s, there was a whole series of guitars, 5 or 6 models, they were built by Bourgeois. So, yeah, Washburn has a bit of a history with letting prolific, high-end acoustic guitar makers build their guitars. If you don't know, Larrivee is a company that has built guitars both in Canada as well as the United States. Okay, and their United States shop is in Oxnard, California, which is where this was built. So yeah, very, very similar to a lot of Larrivee guitars, to the point a lot of people thought these were, that I spoke to in the Larrivee group afterwards, thought that they'd just simply taken a Larrivee LO3 and rebranded it as a new guitar. But it's not true. These are actually slightly different from Larrivee LO3s, which have a very similar body shape. This isn't trying to copy a Larrivee LO3 or was not modeled after one. As I mentioned, this exact guitar shape existed from Washburn back in the 1930s. Again, check the photo that I linked in the description for proof of that. They just coincidentally happen to have a very similar design, or maybe Larrivee was inspired by that old design themselves and they built their L series off of that. Who really knows? I don't know the history behind it. All I know is this is a wonderful sounding Dreadnought with a very unique body that allows it to fill the role of both a Dreadnought as well as a small body guitar like a Grand Auditorium or a Grand Concert. And I'm slightly out of tune. Give me a second to grab a tuner. And you know, that's my own fault for not tuning this thing up before the video, but that's alright. Go. Sorry about that, I know, not the most entertaining thing to watch, but yeah, Larrivee built wonderful guitar, very unique body shape on this. So if you have a look at it, we have the typical width lower bout of a Dreadnought, but then we get that tighter waist, which is somewhere between a Dreadnought and a Grand Concert or a Grand Auditorium. It's not Grand Auditorium level stand as you saw with the side-by-side with that Washburn there, but if I pull up a typical Dreadnought, you can definitely see the waist is tighter on the Washburn than it is on this Hummingbird here. And then the upper bout is about the same width as the standard Dreadnought, although it's a slope shoulder design. So essentially what this does is it marries qualities between the square shoulder Dreadnought, the slope shoulder Dreadnought, and the Grand Auditorium / Grand Concert for a kind of Swiss Army knife of sorts. And even the Larrivee LO3 has a reputation for being a one-size-fits-all guitar because of that. Because you get the super loud cannon sound of a Dreadnought, and I don't know how loud that is going to be through YouTube's compressed audio, but in the room it is loud. This is easily the loudest guitar that I have, even dwarfing that huge-bodied archtop that I have over there. This thing is an absolute cannon, and it pushes sound. It projects with the lightest touch. I'm not strumming that hard, but this thing is still super, super loud. So it has that punch of a Dreadnought, but it has the push of a small body guitar, even with a light touch. So yeah, it really is cool because Dreadnoughts are known for being the best, you know, quote-unquote best body shapes for hard strumming, while smaller body, tighter waisted guitars like the Grand Concert, Grand Auditorium, OM, Triple O, Double O, stuff like that are typically known for being better for finger picking as well as flat picking because they push the sound better. So this does it all, and it does it all really, really well. So that makes this a really, really versatile guitar. And if I was a recording artist, this would undoubtedly be the guitar I took with me to record. Funny enough, if I ever do actually record anything, I'll take this and my other Washburn with me, as between the mahogany on this and the rosewood on that, and the body shapes both being kind of a one-size-fits-all style, I wouldn't have need for pretty much anything else. This would handle anything that I wanted that mahogany tone for, and that would handle anything I wanted the rosewood tone for. So yeah, super, super cool stuff there. Let's go through the specs real quick before I continue ranting, because I'm sure someone wants to know what the specs are. As I mentioned, solid Stika spruce top, solid African mahogany for the back and sides, African mahogany neck, ebony for the fingerboard and bridge. It is a 25.5-inch scale. We have mother of pearl dot inlays. We have maple binding across the fingerboard and the body of the guitar, which is beautiful, and you can also see it down here. as well as on the cap. And again, it goes all the way up the fingerboard. Then we have an ebony plate on the headstock. We have Graphtech open gear ratio tuners, which are wonderful. They have a different gear size for each string, so that way a full turn is a full step on any string. So really, really cool stuff there. And they hold tune really well. Yes, this was out of tune earlier, but I live in Texas and I've been blasting an air conditioner all day to combat the heat outside, so temperature changes are to throw most anything out of tune. So, great tuning machines. We have a bone nut and saddle, and the nut is 1 3/4 inches, by the way, so nice wide spacing, which is great for picking. Did I miss anything? Okay. Let's talk about this bracing for a little bit, because they make a big deal out of it. So the first thing is, the bracing is made out of spruce, but it's not Stika or Adirondack or anything you may be familiar with, not Engelmann. It is moon spruce. Okay, what is moon spruce or moonwood? It's European spruce taken from the Himalayan mountains. It's an alpine spruce that's apparently harvested during a full moon. There's, I believe, some local folklore about what that does for your tone. I'm personally not the superstitious type. I don't believe that wood harvested during a full moon is any different than wood harvested during any other time of night, or time of day for that matter. But if you believe, that's excellent. That's really cool. You have it here. Let's see. It is cathedral peaked scalloped X bracing made out of Himalayan alpine moon spruce. So yeah. Cathedral peaked, I have no idea what that means whatsoever. I did a little research and couldn't find very much information on it. Scalloping on the bracing, pretty common technique. We see it done by Martin, by all sorts of companies. Guild has done it. And typically a lot of people do prefer a scalloped brace guitar over a non-scalloped brace guitar. So this does have that going for it. The bridge, as I mentioned, which is made out of ebony, is in the old Washburn smile style. And you can see the pickguard is a very retro-inspired pickguard, which is very cool. The pins for the strings themselves are also made out of bone, which is a wonderful thing to see. Most guitars that you buy, you'll have to upgrade the bridge pins if you don't believe that the bridge pins affect your tone, which I do. Even a lot of Martins come with plastic. And yeah, this actually came stock with bone, which was really, really nice to see. That pickguard, by the way, they say is nitrocellulose. I think they mean to say celluloid. But it is a good, thick, nice looking pickguard, kind of a tortoiseshell type of thing. And overall, the guitar is gorgeous. The setup on here is perfect. The frets are perfect. It plays beautifully. I currently have this thing strung up with the Dario 1152 XS phosphor bronze coated strings, because those are my preferred strings, and I put them on everything. And so yeah, it's strung with my preferred brand, with my preferred gauge, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. So, love to see that. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and bring this thing up, and let's do our quick tone demonstration segment of the video. So very punchy, very bright. By the way, you can see that herringbone around the herringbone rosette around the sound hole there, as well as the hand-signed information on that label on the inside. Super, super cool stuff. Let's do some finger picking. I think it sounds wonderful. Let's see here. What else can I do for you guys? screwing this up already on the demo. Anyways, ignore my sloppy playing. I always end up doing this whenever I go to record a review video, but I'm not going to edit it out. Mistakes happen, you're going to hear them. So sorry about that, but yeah. Wonderful sounding instrument. So I'll let you see this thing nice and close. Have a look at everything on the guitar. There's that vintage headstock, which I love. Maybe you can see those different gear ratios. So yeah, that's it for my very, very short, very brief tone demonstration of this guitar. So why did I buy this particular guitar? Well, it actually had nothing to do with a love for the brand, even though I do like a lot of Washburn guitars. I had played one of these things back in like 2019, I think, at a Guitar Center, and I fell in love. But I did not have the $2,000 to spend on it, which is what these retailed for, is $2,000. Even though it's worth every penny of that $2,000, I just didn't have it. And so I had to leave the guitar behind. And I was never able to find one whenever I did have the finances for it. And so here recently I was like, you know what, I'm gigging again, I'm playing a lot of music, things are stable, I'm going to buy myself a high-end American-made quality guitar. And I was shopping around and I was narrowed down between two instruments, which were a Martin D18 Satin and a Gibson J45 Studio. And I really didn't want to go for the Studio because I was really only looking at it to get an American Gibson. I hate everything Gibson's done with walnut back and sides. I've yet to find a walnut guitar that I liked. If you like walnut guitars, that's wonderful. I love that for you. I just don't personally like the tone, at least none of any of the ones I've played. So I was really leaning towards the Martin D18 Satin because I knew that was a wonderful guitar that could do a hell of a lot and would sound good and would just be a wonderful player. And before I could pull the trigger on it, I went to eBay just out of curiosity and I scouted around. And even though it wasn't listed by the model number, a seller had it listed by, it was titled Washburn 135th Anniversary Guitar. And they had it listed for $1,100 plus like $116 shipping and handling. So after my local sales tax, it came out to like $1,350. And like that, just immediately snapped it up because there was no comparison to me. I picked this over the Martin, despite not because it was cheaper than the Martin. I would have bought this at the full $2,000 price tag if I'd found one for sale. I would have bought this at its full price over the Martin D18 Satin. And the Martin is a wonderful guitar, but I like this guitar better. I like the way it plays better. I like the nut width better. I like the way it sounds better. To me, to my ear and to my hands, this was a better instrument. Nothing against the Martin, but this is where I wanted to be. And I was so, so happy to be able to pick it up because, man, this was my dream acoustic ever since I'd first played one. And now it's here, and I love it. And I'm never letting it go unless I find the person who has the 1994, and then I'll swap with them. I just realized I haven't even showed you guys the case yet. So let me hang the guitar up for a second and bring up the case. So it did come with this nice hard shell Washburn branded case. And initially, I thought this was the same case that you got with most of their all-solid wood guitars, like the Solo Deluxe that I reviewed, because it came in a very similar looking brown Washburn hard case. But when I got this in and really felt it and compared it side by side, I noticed this was a marked improvement over the standard Washburn hard case, which are already really nice hard cases, by the way. The Washburn hard cases that you get with a lot of their solid wood guitars, I already think are nicer than your run-of-the-mill, $150 case you can buy at a retail store. But this thing is super nice. I would put this, in terms of quality, over a Martin hard case, and I do own one, so I can say that, and over, or not over, but about equal to one of Taylor's hard cases, which I also own, so I can say that. It really does remind me of that. It's very solid, has a very comfortable padded handle, which, you know, I can carry this thing very comfortably. It's a heavy built case, I'll say that. We have 4 latches along the front, all of which clasp really tightly. The top is slightly arched, and the inside is just a simple black felt. And if we lift this tab up here, which by the way it says case made in Canada, so I have to wonder if this is just one of Larrivee's cases that they put a Washburn decal on instead of saying Larrivee. And it did come with the Allen wrench to adjust the truss rod. So, very, very cool stuff there, as well as a key for the case, which I will never use because, let's be honest, no one ever actually locks these things. Because no matter how nice of a case you have, the lock is easy to break. But yeah, super nice hard case. Definitely a $250 case by itself, no doubt, easily. So, is there anything else to say after this particular, or for this particular guitar? I'm looking at my notes. Looks like I have covered everything. So, what can I say about it? Well, what I can say is if you're looking for a very unique Dreadnought that's made in the USA and you happen to find one of these things, don't hesitate to spend as high as $2,000 for it. It's worth every penny. I would have happily bought this at $2,000. And I think there's 1 or 2 on Reverb that have popped up. I knew for a fact there was one on Reverb that, for $1,300 that I didn't buy purposely because the seller didn't want to tell me a lot of information. Didn't want to tell me how it played. Didn't want to tell me how the action was set. Didn't want to tell me the serial number. It didn't have the original certificate or the hard case or the book. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to gamble on that one. But since buying this one, another one has been listed on Reverb for $1,500 and something bucks plus I think a couple $100 in shipping from Canada or something. And yeah, if I had the money to buy that one up, I would in a heartbeat, despite already owning one, because I love the guitar that much. Like I said, I chose it over a Martin D18 Satin, which is a wonderful, wonderful guitar. So, man, this thing has that sparkle, doesn't it? It really has that. First of all, it resonates beautifully. Like it just rings and rings and rings, even with the lightest strum. I'm far from a good lead player, but I don't know. It makes me want to play it. Every time I look at it, I want to pick it up and play it, which is what every acoustic guitar should do. Every guitar that you own should make you want to pick it up and play it, and this thing does that for me wonderfully. The only complaints I have about it, 30 minutes into the video, are that it only has one strap button. So there's no strap button up here. I could install one, but I'm not going to on a guitar like this. So I will just have to use, something around the headstock. So that's a bit of a bummer. And no built-in electronics. I would have liked to have seen this with something like a, I don't know, not a Fishman system, not at this price level, not at this sound quality, but maybe an LR Bags or something would have been really cool to see. And no, I won't install one, not on a guitar like this that is this limited and this collectible and this, historic, I guess. You know, only 135 made. I can guarantee there's less of them still in the world now because some of these were bound to have gotten damaged, destroyed, thrown away, whatever. Super cool guitar, and I'm so happy that I bought it. So I'm going to shut up and stop ranting now because we're at 31 minutes, and I feel like every bit of information I could possibly give has been given by this point. So yeah, the Washburn RSD135-D Solo Dreadnought, made by Larrivee in the USA. What a wonderful guitar.